Welcome to another episode of the Progress Always podcast. I'm your host, Michael Anders, and I'm here with Joanna Riggs, our fascial stretch therapist and coach at Next Level. What's going on, girl? Thanks for taking the time to be here today.
No problem. Nothing much is going on.
Awesome. So getting this thing rolling again, this whole podcast situation, I wanted to leverage this opportunity for the Next Level community to get to know who's coaching them. And it's been going good so far. And I'm genuinely interested and excited about having this conversation with you. One, because I know that I'm going to learn a lot, even though we spend a lot of time together. And, we've got a really interesting journey together as coaches, starting from a presentation while you were in your undergrad, some time in between, and then bumping into you again at a CrossFit competition.
Europa.
Yeah. And, and then picking things back up and you coming on board at Next Level. So, for those who weren't there for any of that, walk us through how Joanna, the coach and fascial stretch therapist, got here.
To Next Level in general.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I guess we'll start with the actual, me actually seeing you for the first time part. I was in college for my undergrad, which is the exercise and wellness degree that I got from ASU. And you did a presentation. I'm forgetting, honestly, what the presentation's about. And I've told you this before, and I hope it still cracks you up that, I remember your speech because you asked everybody's names and I understood what you were doing, but I was like, this is taking forever. And then the rest of your speech, I remember was good, but I was like, why is he taking so long? I get it, but oh my God. And then obviously years later, you're like, you didn't come up and talk to me afterwards. I'm like, nope, I didn't. But that was, I graduated in 2018, so it's probably 16 or 17, I want to say. No, probably 17 or 18, actually, because I only did 2 years at ASU. And then I used to work at a CrossFit gym in Chandler, and then I was teaching fascial stretch therapy at the time that you guys came into my sphere again. I saw the 20%ers, which is what it was called previously on Instagram. And it was basically, it's what the Leaders Forum is now, where it's like a forum where a bunch of, at the time, it was mostly just entrepreneurs just talk to each other and share ideas and figure out how to help people, help each other. And I saw that and I kept looking at it and, it was before the algorithm was much more fancy and it just kept popping up on my feed anyway. And I was like, what is this? This looks interesting. And so, and I was like, well, I remember him talking in my, in my college class one time. And then after that, some time went by, obviously. And then I went to Europa one year with some of my friends and coworkers. And I saw you coaching one of your athletes at the actual CrossFit part of Europa, because it's a big fitness expo. I also saw one of my old teachers do strongman there, but you were coaching Camille at the time, and so then after that, I was like, he's the one that leads that 20%ers thing, and so then I just wanted to know about it, so I just went up to you and was like, I almost didn't. I was like, ah. So I went up to you and was like, hi, what's that 20%ers thing? You're like, what's your name? I was like, you actually spoke in my class. And you're like, oh, really? I'm like, yeah. And then you're just like, come on down and check it out. So, and that would have been, I'm having trouble remembering the year because I was part of the 20%ers for about a year before I came to the actual gym Next Level.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably like
that would have been 19 because you came. 'Cause you came on board the team.
2020. Because
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And so that's how I met you officially, is through that. And was a part of the 20%ers for about a year. I had stopped CrossFit coaching in January of 19, I want to say, because I had started teaching at Stretch to Win and basically running my business out of Stretch to Win in Chandler. And the schedule at Stretch to Win is basically 1 to 2 weeks a month for long periods of time. So, and it, like 7 to 4:30 every day. And so I could not CrossFit coach anymore. And it was also something that at the time I was a little burned out on and just didn't feel like I was necessarily improving. And it's more of like an old school CrossFit culture, like a lot more competitive, if you will. And I don't think my lot is to necessarily coach a bunch of competitors, which it's very fun to do. It's just I don't think it's what is necessarily for me. So mostly timing, but also that I think I was ready to hop out of my old gym. And so I stopped coaching and taught at Stretch to Win for 3 years. But within that time, I started doing the 20%ers and just running my fascial stretch therapy practice out of Stretch to Win. And so I did that for, I joined, I don't know, it doesn't really matter. But like during 2020s, we're still going on the path of like how to get to next level. So during 2020, shit happened and the world shut down. Therefore, what happened to me is that I closed my practice for about 2 months, and we still had the leaders forum. And within closing my practice, the main thing was that I couldn't teach anymore. Like she shut down workshops for, at the time, an undeterminable period of time. It ended up going until about September, but I closed my practice for about 2 months and then decided to reopen and just go for it and see what happened. But in that time period, I had gone to, I'm going to call it the Leaders Forum. I had gone to the Leaders Forum and was like, yeah, I don't know what to do with myself. Not necessarily like, I was worried that I was like, what if I can't teach anymore? That's A, something that I like doing, and B, that's a decent chunk of income that is now leaving me because of something I can't control. And so, so basically it was like, well, I remember saying this in the forum, like, I should probably use my degree. I should probably and I like doing it, but I was like, I should probably use my degree to, and see what kind of options I can explore there instead of just stretch therapy. And so, so that's when, after we had talked about it, you were like, hey, you want to come? Want to come on board? And I was like, I knew at some point I would. And at the time, and for years in working here, I've lived 30 minutes away. So it was a commitment I didn't fully want to make, but I knew I was going to, kind of thing. And so, yeah, I started like shadowing, if you will, mostly shadowing one-on-one training because I had already been coaching for 5 years. So shadowing one-on-one training in July of 2020. And then in October, technically, I signed on officially, but was coaching the whole time.
Yeah. One of the things I talked about with Matt and Alyssa previously was, this coaching development thing that was really raw about the time that you came aboard. And I mean, you were probably one of the first that got a taste of any semblance of structure whatsoever, and any kind of formality. And I was telling them, I think that's one of the things that sets next level apart. And it's really the reason, if you will, that I opened the building in the first place. I really saw just so many flaws in the industry. And, you've been around for long enough to know that, like, not all coaches are created equal, and the barrier of entry into this game is extremely low. And when you see good coaching, and you've experienced bad coaching, not just in our arena of micro gyms and CrossFit boxes, but, just in sports as well. You got that history in gymnastics and whatnot. The good, the bad, the ugly. It's like, if you can kind of, create a system, if you will, that improves the industry as a whole at all, right? That was a big deal to me. And for somebody who had the experience that you have, the credentials that you have, and still want to, and having your own practice going all the while, to still want to go through that process, rough draft as it was, right? Like, I think that says a lot about you. And I think it says a lot about our team in terms of their commitment to excellence and making the entire atmosphere of Next Level that much better, right?
Yeah.
So like, having all that said, what was attractive about that opportunity for you
to join Next Level in general?
Yeah, knowing that you had like that barrier of coaching development, and it's so easy, and you've seen it. People come through the door and be like, "Yeah, I got this degree. I played here. I did this, that, and the other thing." I'm like, "Cool. Still got to do coaching development," and then we never see him again. Right?
Yeah, you're right. I didn't see it as a major barrier, I don't think, because I already understood that you wanted to like build like a sufficient team, and I already understood like you as a person enough to know like this isn't necessarily meant to like undermine you. It's not meant to like demean you or like lessen any of your experiences prior. It's just meant to help you learn the way that you do things, and the way that and help not just like me learn, but also you learn about me and like how I operate and how I would prefer to, run things, especially in a class setting. I mostly signed on for the mentorship part in relation to the one-on-ones, because I wasn't used to doing a ton of one-on-one training. I did some at my previous CrossFit gym, but most of my one-on-one has been related to stretch therapy. And so I think that I just understood the process enough to know that it's not meant to like demean me necessarily. It's just meant to like help me learn. And I also understand that initially you had said like, we're working on like making the coaching development, like this is kind of like a rough draft. I like, that was part of the conversation. I'm like, okay, I can help you improve it. Like, and I try and I usually try and give you as honest of feedback as possible. And so I also took that as like, he wants my input, which, means a lot. So that's kind of how I took it.
Yeah, I describe our relationship as, if I ever want the truth, I go see Joanna.
That's awesome.
If I want to know how bad I'm fucking things up, or where drastic improvement can be made, I go see Joanna. And
or I'll just tell you.
Yeah, or that, I don't have to go looking for it. It'll find me, right? And I think that's really cool. In one of the things that I admire about what I felt were the best leaders I ever followed was they were just open to feedback, both upstream and downstream. And I think that that's one thing that we've really nailed as a team is, we invite that gentle conflict into the conversation, so that that rising tide raises all boats, so that we're all able to improve this next level experience, and get what we all want from that product, right? And I often describe, and you've been through a handful of iterations of this, we've got the best team we've ever had now. and everything's cooking on all cylinders, and knock on wood, I want to keep it that way.
There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So in your journey thus far as a coach, and what's the number one most important lesson you've taken from coaching?
Okay. Number one lesson I've taken from coaching. And you mean out there, not necessarily in here, right? You just
Yeah.
mean coaching. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The word that just popped in my head was listen. There's no talking at someone isn't going to get either of you where you want to go. And so listening and asking questions has probably been the biggest lesson for me, and just coaching in general. I try not to, and I mean, nobody's perfect, but I try not to have all of my answers to questions be answers. A lot of them might be more questions. I was asked today, I have a woman who had some balance. She was asking like how balance is related to like flexibility and stuff. And I was like, under what context are you asking this question? And so she was asking me in relation to like her injuries. And I was like, okay. And then I asked her one more question. Then I explained what I like the context that she was kind of looking for, without talking at her and spewing a bunch of facts that wouldn't have been absorbed anyway. And so that's kind of the idea, is like the more questions that you're able to ask in order to get the answer that you're both looking for, instead of the answer that you think they want to hear, the better. And it helps you guys both, I mean, get to where you want to go a lot more efficiently and a lot more honestly.
What did it take for you to learn that? Like, when did it become like, oh, like that's a thing? Like, what was the moment?
I would say I like earlier in my like CrossFit career. I mean, I started coaching like CrossFit when I was 17, and got maybe a big head in some ways, where I would like be a little bit too bossy, or a little bit like put my nose where it didn't belong. And then I was like, oh, okay, that wasn't for me. Okay, I'll just like step this way and then stay in my lane. And so I think that starting coaching young and having a few lessons along those lines kind of helped me to go, okay, I should probably like delve a little bit more delicately, or just like noticing, like you like see the look in somebody's eyes, like when they walk in one day and you're like, that you're not asking me about this for this reason. You're asking me something completely different. Like if somebody has like that look in their eyes where they're like, I'm exhausted, but the Metcon is like ridiculously difficult, I'm like, yeah, no. Let's and I'll start to ask them questions and go, hey, are you okay? Do you need something? Or like, can we like modify this? Because there's something clearly not right. So it's some of it is like a feeling that I get, and some like intuitive sense, if you will, and some of it is having those experiences of like, okay, I'll shut my mouth for a minute and just see what they say to me or what they say to somebody else, and then kind of go from there, if that makes sense.
Oh, no, totally. And I find that genuinely interesting. And one of the words that I just picked up on as you were talking was intuition.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's something that is very unique and powerful in you and how you coach. And I think it's something that, we often describe as, just that gut feeling about things. But you seem to have very conscious awareness of your intuition, right? It shows up in how you coach, as after you see your clients, you do a lot of what I'll call cleansing work, right? In just your personal practice, as you move through people's energy. And, not to get like too woo woo here, but that's,
it's fine.
it's very, I know
It
you're
is what it is.
yeah.
Yeah.
When did you become aware of that switch, because watching you, just move through HQ on a daily basis, like you're doing it all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
When did you realize how important that was for you to maintain center and not take other people's energy with you all day long?
I learned that entirely teaching at Stretch to Win. I didn't know that when I was at my old CrossFit gym. When I started teaching, you learn extremely quickly about body work and how it affects you and how it affects others, and how what you do can be put into other people, and what they have can be put into you if you're not careful. And so I learned that through experience of like working with all my students. And I had some awesome students who taught me a lot of lessons. And that was one of them. Is like, I actually, okay, I guess I have a story. So I was taking my level 3 workshop, and in my level 3 workshop, I had already taught one workshop about a month before. So like we kind of like went straight head first into teaching for a few reasons. But during my level 3 workshop, I had already been through 2 of these. I understood the deal. I just taught a workshop, and I was laying there and somebody was working on me. And after like, it was what we call a large group. So they were just doing the move and they were watching the screen and just trying to follow along with what the teacher was doing. But while I was laying there, when I was with her at lunch, I like could not stop crying. I like could not figure out what the fuck was wrong with me. I was like, I don't know why I'm so upset. Like, I don't understand what this is. And so then we get back, and Anne at the time was like, oh, honey, you just absorbed everything. And I'm like, what? What does that even mean? What do you mean I absorbed everything? Like, I don't get it. And so I had some help getting that out. And then that was kind of like a main catalyst to like a real world experience of me doing it. I had a couple of times where I inadvertently facilitated it while I was teaching, where I would just do some sort of move to somebody with like super slow breathing intention. Whatever happened, I still can't explain it super well. But something happened, and then they just like, they either have to leave, they want to talk, they start crying, what have you. They have some sort of reaction, and then we talk about it afterwards and kind of just see where they're at. But I mean, even if I haven't personally done it, I've also seen the extent of reactions at that same workshop. I saw somebody like kind of get knocked unconscious by it when she was being worked on by Anne for about 45 minutes. And so I kind of like, I saw it immediately. It was like a punch where I was like, oh, whoa, what is all of this? And then Megan, Kathy, Mike, Anne, and Chris have all been a huge instrumental part in helping me see what that looks like. And they all have their different ways of kind of going through it. But yeah, all of them have been pretty helpful in helping me see that. And I've had some help from all of them in the like energy workspace, where I'll have somebody like do something on me, or like I feel messed up after teaching, and the mic just comes up to me and just does this. And somebody's like, is he doing energy work? I'm like, I guess. and then I feel better afterwards. I'm like, oh, great. And so, yeah, that is almost entirely Stretch to Win. And then I think I've just kind of brought it into here, and just learning about like being an empath. And I don't need to put that in air quotes, but an empath where I can literally feel what somebody else is feeling, which is always bizarre to say, but yeah, that's kind of, that all blends together. And so I have to be super conscious of like how much I'm putting out and how much I'm taking in. Hopefully not taking in really anything, but shit happens.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, 100%. The what have you noticed in the immediate aftermath of that emotional purge? Doing that active tissue work, whether it's out there on the floor or on your table. God, I'm notorious for just passing out, when you're working on me. But when somebody has that emotional release, because you get them into that, I don't know what frequency it is, that theta state where whatever's bottled up inside is given permission to leave, right? What physiological, I guess, changes show up after that? Are they more
After the reaction?
yeah, are they like more all of a sudden just way more mobile than they used to be? Are they experiencing significantly less pain? Like what kind of things show up? Because like you said, you're not a therapist. They're not coming to you for that particular experience, but it just so happens to be a byproduct sometimes of just getting into such a relaxed state that whatever they've been holding on to is finally given permission to leave.
I learned about holding space through, all of the people I just mentioned, but Mike is very good at it. He and Anne have talked about how like you're kind of like in a rowboat when you're working on somebody, and somebody might be in a place unknowing or knowing where they're drowning and they're trying to reach out for help. If you leave your boat and go in with them, you are not able to help them because you're not able to help them because you are now in the water too. And so what I noted, and so that's what helps me kind of stay back a little bit. But to answer your question, anything, it's a very dependent answer, because the reactions can be, I haven't seen all of these, but they can be anywhere from tears to like hardcore laughing, crying. It can be like physical reactions where their body like moves in different ways than they're intending. But what can sometimes happen is, like that area that they weren't sure about, like just starts to feel better. They were able to release some of that tension in the way of letting it pass through them rather than like smashing the shit out of it or what have you. It can also be they just like look and feel more at peace, which isn't necessarily like the reaction they were looking for, but fascia will hold memories and experiences and all that fun stuff. So if you have like some sort of, I don't want to overuse the word trauma, but if you have some sort of trauma that you haven't completely let pass through your body, it can still be stuck wherever in your body and it might be causing an issue. And so they might just feel a sense of peace because they were able to let it pass through them. And sometimes it just feels cool. like some people be like, what did you just do? I'm like, well, just followed wherever your body was trying to lead me. Because that happened in the gym one time where I was working on somebody and like I was just able to like follow the tissue and guide it. And then afterwards he was like, I felt everything you just did. It was like up here, down here, here. And that, like my fingers were only in one spot because like the fascia all connects in different ways. And so I can be working on one spot, but then over here might have a good effect and over here might have the opposite effect. And so, yeah, it's, that was a very jumbled answer, but a lot of things a lot of positives can happen. And I will say sometimes they might not show me the reaction of what's going on, but they might come and tell me next week, like, hey, I got in the car and I started crying. What's going on?
Yeah.
And I was able to write all of this down, or like, and so it can be It can be something physiological, like, oh, my squat's stronger. Oh, my straight leg raise got better. Or it can be like, I was able to work through this. I was able to get some peace. So anything, anything and everything, because the body's kind of crazy.
Yeah. Speaking of that, let's nerd out real quick. You're talking about, you know, touching them over here and they're feeling it down here. You know, a lot of people don't understand that fascial connection and how, you know, something as simple as rolling out your feet can open up your lumbar spine or eliminate shoulder pain, right? At, you know, what's the best way to explain how all that works?
So I will give you two facets to this. So the first one is just explaining that the entire fascial system is connected, but they're broken up into different fascial lines according to Tom Meyer's anatomy trains. So there's one in terms of like fascial dissection from the bottom of the big toe all the way up to your scalp is your superficial back line. And that's the main one that's studied in research. But then there's also the deep front line. There's the spiral line. There's the arm lines. There's lots of different ones. But yeah, those are the main ones that I would say that I work with the most. And so all of that means that if I have tension in the back of my neck, we'll go with the back line to be frank. So if I have tension in the back of my neck, I can actually use that model. Can I go get the little Tensegrity model?
Yeah, go get it. Yep.
Okay, 1 second.
All right. This is hilarious. This is hilarious because
like,
I've been looking at that thing for years, and I was like,
really?
I have no idea what that is.
Okay, so it's in the middle. So fascia is the thing that weaves in and wraps around everything to keep it together, and so that has to do with the basic concept, but has to do with the concept of tensegrity. So that basically means that any point that you can push can affect the rest of the body. So if I tilt this way, you see how every other string gets affected the more I push it in? Like every single thing is being affected. So that means that if I have tension, let me see how to do this. If I have tension up here in this top hand, if I have tension right there, I might not feel tension or a blockage or whatever it is up there. I could feel it all the way down here in this section. So it doesn't necessarily mean that pain equals exactly where it is. It could translate because of the forces that are being acted upon it in a different place than it would normally be, than you would think it would be, I guess. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. and so that's kind of how I would explain like the concept of tensegrity in relation to pain and stuff. But it's the same thing in relation to like movement as well. Like if oh yeah, let me go back to my previous example. So if your feet are like, if your feet are tight or if your neck feels tight, if you roll your feet, that effect can make, it's very similar to here. That effect can, if you reverse it, can make the rest of the model actually become in balance. It's not necessarily like enough flexibility, enough strength. It's like it's more in balance with the rest of the chain. And so, I mean, for feet specifically, that's like the most sensory input you get throughout the world, other than your hands, is through your feet. And when you move through the ground, if you're not able to move your feet very much, then because those are tight, that can translate upwards in any part of your body. It could be like, it might be the person typically saying, my hamstrings are always tight. That could be that. It could be a little bit higher. It could be right here in the back of your neck. It just kind of depends on like what your typical movement patterns are like, how you carry your stress, all that fun stuff. So I hope that answered your question.
Oh no, 100%. And you know, I know that's that's a question that a lot of people ask. And, I know, just in my own personal experience and dealing with all the injuries and chronic issues that I walk around with on a daily basis, like I understand how important that is, but it's also something that, you know, when you broach that with clients, it's like, I don't understand. They don't readily understand or accept how effective something as silly as ironing out your feet with a lacrosse ball affects
Mm-hmm.
everything upstream from that site. So, that was actually really well explained and really insightful. So, yeah.
Cool. The other thing I'm remembering about like going through the feet specifically is and just anything like with high sensory input is just like your brain's activity in it. So the more awareness that your brain has of the rest of your body, which is your brain, your internal awareness is interoception, but your brain's awareness of what's around you is proprioception. And if you are able to gain a little bit more awareness of like where like what hurts, what feels good, what doesn't, which is if we can improve the proprioception, then it helps for the brain to feel safe in the ranges that it has. And so if somebody is having like knee pain, but it's because they don't have any awareness of what is going on below the knee. So all forces are being transmitted through the knee because there's no awareness of what's happening at the feet. Then if we're able to roll the feet, then the brain goes, oh, that's there. That can take some of the load. That can disperse that so that there's not as much pain through the knee. And so there's the fascial component, but then there's also like the brain and nervous system being aware of, hey, this stuff exists. We can transmit these forces a little bit more easily. And same thing with somebody who's like, who sits at a desk all day where they just don't have any awareness of like their back because other than pain. So the more safety you can create with movement, with body work, with like rolling, myofascial release, then the safer the body feels. And then you can, create the desired changes you want.
Hell yeah. Okay. So,
You said nerd out.
no, 100. I'm in it. I'm in it. I love it. But it also brings the point, not all problems are solved with any one modality, in terms of creating that proprioception, right? It's not that you didn't stretch enough and that's why you blew your hamstring. It's not
Yeah.
that you didn't warm up enough and that's why you blew your back out. It's not that you're not strong enough and that's why you hurt your shoulder. Like those are
Mm-hmm.
all uh indicators or symptoms of like something bigger, like what you just explained.
Mm-hmm.
When we talk about movement prep, in the coaching development, it's like the one of the things that we explain to our apprentices early on is that the warm up isn't for the sake of getting the blood pumping and
Sweat. Yeah.
getting the muscles loose. Like that's a byproduct of warming up, and it's a sign that the body is prepared. But the intention is to prime the system for the stress that you're about to put it through, right? And
Yeah.
depending on the stimulus, right? Let's nerd out a little bit more. Depending on the stimulus, that warm up, that movement preparation may look different. We might just go straight to the barbell and just flow for a little while. We
Mm-hmm.
might, just spend time on the floor isolating joints and specific muscle groups. We might do some tissue work with lacrosse balls and foam rollers and all that kind of good stuff. But it's really stimulus dependent, and those are the kind of nuances of coaching and giving the clients and athletes what they need on any given day that you know really sets apart what we do. And like bringing on people with expertise like yours that we all get to benefit from and enhance ourselves as coaches and leverage that makes just the experience as a whole that much more effective.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just understanding what each day brings and how to prep it best is I love warm-ups. Like they're probably my favorite thing, even though a lot of people don't like my warm-ups because they're very tiring. But that's I like to prep the body, whether it be nervous system or tissue, in relation to like creating the most beneficial, helpful environment for the body to move, whether that be a lot of just repetitive movement patterns, or if it's, I usually will favor some sort of mobility, stretching, activation work in order to make sure that the body feels like ready and primed. I know that some, like when you start off coaching, sometimes the default is doing what would work for you because, oh, it works for me, it should work for everybody. But then you learn, like, I'm the opposite of almost everybody I would work with, where I'm pretty bendy, I don't need to stretch a lot, and so I have to make sure that I'm doing it in the best interest of the client, where like they probably need a lot of stretching and very little activation work and core stability, whereas I need very little stretching, a lot of core stability, prep, activation work. But understanding who needs what and where they're most applicable is probably one of the most fun parts of just like, I mean, coaching, warming people up is like, hey, I put that in there for you. I put that in there for you.
I'm always sweating my ass off in your warm-ups, and I'm always curious, like, how come nobody is as wet as I am right now? And we haven't even done anything yet.
They're mostly heave hoeing. They're not necessarily sweating.
um,
Sometimes the warm up is the hardest freaking part, because then you're just like barely moving and you're just like shaking because you're trying to activate everything. But then that
well,
makes moving barbells a lot easier, and your body weight.
well, it's one of those things where, it's so necessary, and it's been proven over and over and over again with you in terms of like, I don't want to do this, but I know that in doing it, I'm going to be so much better, and I'm going to be so much happier with my performance at the end of this Metcon or whatever we're going to do. It's like, all right, cool, let's rock. Whatever you say, we'll do it. We'll make it happen. You know, and but you also bring up a good point, as in terms of coaching and coaching bias, right? You said you don't need a lot of mobility work. You're already super bendy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we always talk about, what's in the best interest of the client, right? Has that always just been part of your natural, your innate coaching style? Like, it's not about me, it's about the client? Or is that something that just over time you've just come to understand and accept?
I would say that I naturally biased towards it, but I one time I used to coach 3:30 and 4:30 primarily at my old gym, and I love that class. And 4:30 was also great, but 3:30 was by far my favorite. And when I would coach these guys, one day I wasn't coaching because I think I had to hop out early. So I was literally on the ski erg. I remember this exactly. I was on the ski erg, and my coworker Josh comes up to me. He's like, and this is the 3:30 class. He goes, "These are the tightest fucking people I've ever met." And I was like, "Yeah, why do you think I spend so long on mobility and everything?" Because like he learned that that's how that class operates, and I had to learn very quickly, like, oh yeah, they need a lot of this stuff and not necessarily what I would do. And I think that I mean that partially that was like an experience early on where I was like, yeah, they are tight. And I didn't realize how tight they were. I just was very used to it. But then when he brought that up to me, I'm like, oh yeah, they are. That's kind of where, like, that was one of those situations where I realized that I do that. So I guess it's also an intuitive sense thing. And I just like making I like being as creative as possible and like making the best warm up possible, because the Metcon strength piece, it's already written. So if I can put as much like creativity and fun into the warm up, and just like challenge people's brains sometimes, like especially with balance work and stuff, because like the more variety, I learned this from Dr. Perry with Stop Chasing Pain, but the more variety your brain has, like the less you get injured, because then your body has different places to go. And so, yeah, that was, so yeah, I kind of intuitively do that, but sometimes have to catch myself and go, that's not what that person needs.
Yeah. Yeah. The, speaking of what that person needs, what's your favorite client success story?
I have a lot of good ones, but one of my favorite ones was from a gentleman I saw not that many times. I saw him probably less than 8. He actually wrote a review, and he came to me after he had like an interesting story. He had like multiple small strokes when he was out of the country in like Turkey. It was some random country, and he had multiple strokes and came back here, and he could not move very well. Like, or his like body kind of essentially like shut down. You wouldn't know he had strokes by the way that he like looked. Like there was no like paralysis of the left side or anything, but he came to me, and after seeing me a certain amount of times, like my goal was just to get his body to just like calm down. And this was a little bit earlier in my career. I was at stretch to win already, but like it was me still figuring out some of this stuff. But there was one stretch I did that I think made some of the most difference. It's like a specific stretch that influences like super deep fascia. And after that stretch and after the accumulation of stretches, I asked for an update from his wife, and he wasn't able to walk around the grocery store without feeling like he was going to pass out. And so he like couldn't do most day-to-day things. And so when he messaged me, or it was on the review, it's somewhere, but when he said that he was able to walk around the store without feeling like he was going to pass out, like he felt totally fine, I was like, oh, like, and nothing else had changed. He didn't get new medication. There wasn't anything related to that he was just able to walk around without feeling dizzy. That was like a huge impactful moment for me, where I was like, wow, this is a lot bigger than just like getting someone more flexible. It has a whole metabolic effect that I haven't even, at the time, I hadn't even like delved into it all yet, where someone can feel that kind of power from just like being manipulated and such. So that was the coolest one, where someone literally is able to just move around and not feel like they're going to pass out. That's probably my favorite one.
That's awesome. It's
Even though I've had a lot.
it's those moments that, I truly feel keep you in the game. That you wouldn't hear that story, without that context and be like, like, I don't understand why that's a big deal. But then you realize,
Yeah.
like, you have all that backstory and that context, and you're like, holy shit, you changed that guy's life. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And, what was it about what we do for a living that made you decide that you were going to make this your life's craft?
It wasn't a hard decision to make. You just kind of, I remember vividly being in cheer and like, in cheerleading after I quit gymnastics, and I had liked watching the coaches, and I was like, I'll probably end up doing that one day. But then one of the coaches one day was complaining that she doesn't like make enough money, and I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. maybe that's not a good idea. But I wasn't even graduated high school at the time. And so I saw, like, I always liked the idea of coaching, and then that was my first job. Like, I got asked at one point, like, what was your worst job? I'm like, I've always been a coach. Like, it hasn't been that hard. The only thing that might be not as fun as summer camp, but those are fun still. And so it was an easy decision of just like, I feel like, I mean, I've said this before, but I feel like I kind of just float from like everything into everything I do. Like I taught kids gymnastics, taught adults in CrossFit, then taught a technique, a bodywork technique, and now I'm back to teaching or coaching CrossFit, but with a different lens than I normally would, and with like all of that extra stuff that I learned, and just I wouldn't say anything necessarily. I didn't have like one of those like moments where I was like, this is what I was meant to do. I just kind of keep doing it, and I keep getting shown, if you will, that this is what I think I was meant to do. And it's not, there's no part of me that was like, yeah, maybe I should leave. Like, I remember during COVID, I was like, should I get a job at Target? Like for a split second, I was like, do I need to go down that route? And then I was like, that sounds awful. Like, it doesn't sound like I'll be happy or anything like that if I were to do anything else. And so it's, yeah, it's just easy to do.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, it's obvious in watching you do what you do, and that you've checked that fulfillment box, right? And I think that's something that's rare in this world, in any profession, and especially in what we do. You know, the average the average career in our world is 7 months, and you know, a lot of that is attributed to just, you know, that fly by night, flash in the pan. You know, I was a good athlete once, and I'm going to go ahead and see if that translates into coaching, and they're two totally different skill sets. And you know, if you don't have that passion, that calling, that you know, you don't follow those signs, so to speak, that you just described, you know, that I think that's, you know, beyond the money part, what really makes for a short-lived career. So we're lucky to have somebody like you that's, you know, fulfilled in what they do, passionate about what they do, and it totally shows in your attention to detail and how you approach the craft. So, you know, I appreciate everything that you bring to the table. I know that our community is reaping the benefits of what you bring to the table, and you know, I'm looking forward to everything that grows from it, and everything that we're building at Next Level. So thanks for taking the time today, sharing your wisdom and your flow with the Next Level audience. And if you guys want to follow and gain any advice, tips, and tricks of the trade from Joanna, go ahead and follow her at coach.joanna on Instagram. She's a rock star. She's got plenty to offer. And, you know, reach out if you need, you know, any one-on-one training, or, you know, need to get your stretch on. She'll get you hooked up. Thanks for taking the time today, girl.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.